slash singer is Ben Crane. And I first heard of Ben Crane's name a long time ago when I got introduced to leaning tree cards, and then I was at some event in Bashaw and everybody says, no, he's the one who does the card where the cow is licking up her nose. He's still the guy who does that card. Yeah. And that card, Sharman was telling me that greeting cards usually last like 5 years, maybe. How long has that cow one been out? Yeah, 30 years that card has been out. And so anyway, Mr. Ben Crane.
You're welcome, Ben.
Yeah, nice intro. He's a guy that thinks it's funny that cows pick their nose with their tongue. Well, I do. I've been fascinated by that ever since I was a kid. That's just a thing of beauty and a joy to behold. Thank you guys for coming out. All stripes, you're welcome. We just love having everybody out. And the bottom line for this thing is we want to get to a place where we can actually talk about things instead of throwing crap at each other. That never ends up really well at all. So, okay, I'll smarten up. Sorry there, Max. Normally I like to talk about values because I'm not a politician. In fact, none of us are. We are not your leaders. We are not anybody's leaders. We are just men and women who have a heart to see the right stuff happen, whatever way it's going to look. And I like to talk because I don't know anything about politics and history and all that kind of stuff. We've got folks who kind of handle that. The only thing I know is I'm just a common guy, and I appreciate ethics and values and respect. And that's typically what I talk about. But this last little bit, I watched or just saw a little clip about a gentleman by the last name of Haskell who had just written a book. And I can't even remember the name of the book. I should know that. But his question really got me going. And that is, can a civilization survive after rejecting the values that built it? I thought, wow, there's some foundational stuff. And I'd like to talk about that for just a little bit. I see only two options here. I see being remained tied to a country that seems hell-bent on self-destruction, or pull away to chart a new course of self-preservation. Now that sounds a little prideful, doesn't it? I just want to preserve myself, but no. There's a time to preserve what's right. And that's a simple truth in my opinion. It seems to me that the country that I don't want to see it break up. I really don't. But it seems to me that this country that we love so dearly has borrowed and thrived on the benefits of such values as trust, honesty, integrity, hard work, peace, all given to us by our Creator, the very values that we've actually built our country on from the beginning. And all the while, it has systemically rejected those same values. It's bizarre. It's two-faced. A double-minded person is pretty much unstable in everything he does, right? You can't reject something on one hand that you're embracing on the other. You can't embrace freedom of speech while freezing bank accounts and imprisoning those who hold a different opinion than yourself. You can't allow the forever side to voice their opinion, fly their flag, and be heralded as patriots, while at the same time prohibiting the independent side to do the same thing. You cannot embrace honesty and truth, while at the same time making backroom deals and promises that you never intend to keep, all in the name of getting and staying elected. You cannot embrace the ethic of hard work and personal responsibility while at the same time overtaxing the very people whose work has built the country and are trying to maintain it. You cannot embrace the value of peace while at the same time aligning yourself with countries with deplorable human rights violations. And at the risk of sounding like Chicken Little, we are on the brink of societal collapse. So my question is, what kind of a country do you want? I believe that our honorable colleagues on the opposing side of this debate actually want the same thing as we do. We all want to be proud of our country. We all want to honor the vets who have fought and died for our values and our identity. We want to have a safe place to live and to raise our children the way we want them to be raised. We want to be free to be ourselves and to thrive and to work without being controlled and censored. And we want to be free to hold and voice our own opinions and practice our own faith. We want our vote to actually count west of Ontario. And I believe we both want fiscally responsible government with moral integrity. Someone who says something they're going to do and they do it. It's just common sense. We share so many common goals, even though we disagree on how to achieve them. That's just the way it is. I'm a married man. My wife doesn't agree with everything I do. I don't understand why, but she doesn't. And we have to realize that unity is not sameness. Unity is making the intentional decision to work together towards the same goal, in spite of and even embracing our differences. I don't believe that a country can survive, to answer that question, after rejecting the values it was built on. We've gone so far that there is no turning back. This is the reason why I'm fighting for independence. This is my opinion, but I hold it. I'm fighting for my life, for my family, my children, grandchildren, who are sixth generation on the land that we own, and for my neighbors and for you. They've changed values, Ottawa. We haven't. And I don't believe I'm the only toad in this puddle. I may be, but I kind of don't think so. And this kind of change is not going to be easy. Don't let anybody say that it is. The road ahead will be full of potholes and obstacles and hardships, but think of the pioneers. They were faced with the same scenario, moving forward towards a future or staying put and withering. To remain is just not an option, in my opinion. There's no future here. A move forward is risky, a lot of questions, and we don't have the answers for, but something's got to change. And we have very intelligent folks to give you just a little bit of hope. We have some very intelligent folks that are working out the scenarios that a lot of people, including myself, have questions for. And they plan to roll them out to us in the not too distant future. And then you and I get a chance to actually have a part in making that happen. Our voice, for the first time in our history. I saw that. You missed your nap too, didn't you? But I'll gladly hitch my wagon to that team because I've seen how the current team is pulling, and I ain't that comfortable with being this close to the cliff. I've written a few songs lately that reflect how I'm seeing things. And I've always been proud of this province. I don't know how many Alberta songs I have written before this whole idea even hit my little pea brain. I love this place and I love coming back home to it. I'm grateful for the values and the heritage that this country has done to shape me. My Alberta roots run deep. So I'm going to sing a couple songs for you. I'm going to switch mics and grab my guitar because I look funny without my knees. So I brought my band, and they're so butt ugly that they're behind the curtain. And you don't need to see that because you probably just finished eating. No, I recorded this at my studio. I have a little recording studio. That's part of my business. I think we're on. Good?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that. That's just that's technology for you. My Alberta roots run deep. Could we get some monitor, please? The only life I know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep tradition of blood and sweat and tears. The value of hard work, common sense and hope and truth, family and freedom, and the value of our youth. What makes me want to hold on to what I know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in my blood, in my bones, it gets stronger every day. When somebody tries to move in, tear it all away, I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Well, it's living on the land, watching life come and go, working hard and playing hard in sunshine and in snow. We don't really ask for much because we know that God provides, and it's given us all the things we need to enjoy this life and thrive. So it makes us want to hold on to what we know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in our blood, in our bones, it gets stronger every day. When somebody tries to move it and tear it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand our ground and say, our Alberta roots, you can't hide them, they define us. They made us who we are today, and life is good, just don't throw it away. 'Cause our Alberta roots run deep. You can't dig them up or throw them out, they grow deeper every day. And when somebody tries to move in and tear it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand our ground and say, our Alberta roots run deep. Run deep. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Last tune here, and this was written probably in, both of these were written in March. Before that, my songwriting had just kind of dried out a little bit, but something opened up, and I think it's Shane's fault. He's our boss. he said, you can write a song. And I thought, yeah, that's easy for you to say. Went home and boom, they just fell right out of this hole. That's what the guitar hole is there for. And this next one is kind of a result of I think the coolest thing that I have found through hanging with these people and traveling this country is the stuff that I'm learning. And I did not know a lot of our history of the province. And it's got some great stuff, but there's some tough, we've had a tough slog right from the get-go. So this one is called a little bit of tongue-in-cheek about our history of this country of Alberta. And the dance floor is open. You may now go for it. Big dreams. No, we didn't ask to be brought here back in 1905. We was just fine spending our time to mind our own business and thrive. But the East had different ideas. We was too good a deal to pass up. They saw what we had and they wanted it bad, so they signed us up there on the spot. They said, we'll call you Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. You do the work, we'll take the pay. That makes us the ultimate team. Well, we realized if we was the peasant, this arrangement just couldn't go far. They take all our pay. No, they said, you feed a cow, we may allow you to take just a small sip from the jar. Things just got worse as the time flew. The feds kept us stomping our necks. They take all our pay, keep our assets at bay. The whole thing's become a big wreck. God, old Alberta, ain't nothing that's left of our dreams. We're told what to think. Election day stinks. They've taken out all of our means. Yeah, we've had it. We're rattled. Just gonna move on and take back what's ours from the start. We ride a new horse and we chart a new course. Thank God we can finally be free. So raise a glass to old Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. We're finally free to be who we should be and rid of the liberal scheme. So let's break the chains, breathe free again. Thank God we can finally be free. I'm too old for that foolishness. Well, we really appreciate you guys coming out. And thank you, especially the folks in the front row, for not throwing anything at us. The next speaker we've got this afternoon is a feller that's just from down the road. We're just from up the road. Zane Novak is he's a country boy. He is a tried and true Albertan. He loves his country. He is no stranger to politics. He played in the mayoral race of Calgary and just about got there. But that was at the time of Jody Gondek. And but he learned a whole lot of stuff through what he's doing. And he's just been tirelessly working for this province. Finally got to know him. I'm proud to call him my friend, ladies and gentlemen, Zane Novak.
Ben's always a tough act to follow. I don't sing, I don't dance, I've got no talent.
But you do interpretive dance.
That was a one-time thing that happened twice. We're not talking about it. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to know more about my history or whatever, I could bore you with that. But I think that we're here because we're concerned about why we need to be in this room. I was born, as he mentioned, in a town called Lloydminster. And ironically, the hospital has always been on the Saskatchewan side. And a funny little story about that, I have two children, my daughter Carmia and my son Cole. And my daughter's older, and she was born in Lloydminster too, in the new hospital, which is still in the Saskatchewan side. My son was born in Bonnyville, and they're only like 22 months apart in age. They're both pretty sharp. And when they would argue, my son would put the final card in the table. He'd go, well, at least my birth certificate is Alberta. So we always laugh about that. My daughter, who is as sharp a person as you'll ever meet in your life, never had a comeback for that. But why do we gather in rooms like this today? I mean, I've been fortunate and privileged to have lived in many different places, traveled to many different countries, and every place I always went, I respected where I was there because that was someone's home. And they had unique things to their area, unique things to their culture, and many beautiful things. But I was always so proud of Canada and being able to come back to Canada. But I was always felt that Alberta never got a fair shake in this deal. Not just Alberta, but Western Canada. And why did I say that? Well, I wasn't very involved in politics my entire life at all. In fact, I'll admit, I only started voting about 20 years ago, to be totally honest with you. And then I got more involved. I lived in Calgary. I became very involved in the nonprofit community, which brought me into contact with municipal government, the mayor's office, council, the provincial government, even the federal government. And yes, I regret to say that I have met Justin Trudeau, met with premiers, met with mayors, met with councillors, and it disgusted me. There's no other word for it. Absolutely disgusted me. And when we voted in, or the country voted in Trudeau the second time, it broke my heart. As a Canadian, I was done to think that we could continue willingly down this path. And yeah, you know, I did run for political office municipally in Calgary in 2021. And it started me down a path. But one of the reasons I did that, I had a little oil field business. And when the NDP got into this province in 2015, they got in a Tuesday night. And by 10:30 the next morning, because I was in services company to oil and gas industry, $3.5 million in POs were taken off my desk because that government got in based on no pipelines, increased corporate tax, royalty review, all the things that shook the foundation of the investment and development community in oil and gas, which, you know, is a big resource in this province and pays a lot of bills. And so all discretionary spending was done, and that broke my company, broke my little group. My company was just really my daughter, myself, and I hired people as we got jobs. And so I thought, you know, I always thought all this time, if you worked hard, if you're honest, if you had a good product, that you would be successful. And that's how it used to be. But politics, governments can reach out and touch you in ways that aren't good. And so that made me more aware. And so I came along this path, and I got involved not because I wanted to be a politician, but because I really hated what politicians in this country have become. And as far as Canada itself, I hate to say this, but my faith in it is entirely broken. And this is coming from someone who, you know, every country I went to, I was so proud to talk about Canada and believe in Canada. But it doesn't matter what system you look at right now, it's not to our benefit of Canada in general, but particularly to the West. And people will say, well, we can fix this from inside. You know, we can't, because the political system in Canada is functioning exactly the way it was intended to function. If you look, for instance, at the last federal election, it was called as Carney as winner at 8:09 p.m. Well, our polls in Alberta closed at 8, so they didn't count a single one of our votes. BC, it was an extra hour. They didn't count a single vote. It doesn't matter. Once you get 100 miles west, kilometers of the GTA, I mean, that's it. The election's done. You can look at Alberta. We have about 5 million in population right now. We have 6 senators. You can go to the Maritimes. They have, 2.1, 2.4 million, all of the Maritimes combined. So half our population, they have 34 senators. We will never have a say. If you look at the way the Supreme Court is, we have 2 Supreme Court members who were appointed by Liberal governments that represent all of the West. Ontario has 2, Quebec has 2, the Maritime. We can never win. We can't win in Supreme Court, so we can't get justice. We can't get the vote. You look at our ridings federally in Alberta, it's about 130 to 140,000 residents per riding. You go out into the Maritimes, it's 37 to 40,000, 45,000. So one of their votes counts for 3 of ours. Like, we have no way to fix this from the inside. It wouldn't matter who we elected on a federal basis. We will never get change. If you want the Constitution to be changed, you have to get 7 other provinces to agree with you, and you need 60% of the population. Well, that means you either need Ontario or Quebec to agree with you. Well, that's not going to happen. So you don't have the population. Even if you did, Quebec still has a veto vote. They flipped out and screamed when Alberta used the notwithstanding clause regarding the teachers going back to school to teach children. 4 times in the history of Alberta has the notwithstanding clause been used. Quebec has used it over 1,500 times and no one cares. Doesn't matter what the federal government puts forward, Quebec just, notwithstanding, it's done. When you look at where this country is economically, we're at the bottom of the totem pole of G20, let alone G7. In the last 10 years, our GDP has grown by 0.6%. The US has grown by 20.3%. We are exponentially the lowest. If they were forming the G7 right now, we would not qualify on any level to be part of it. People say to me, well, my grandfather would be rolling over in the grave to think that you would be separating from Canada. I disagree with that. First of all, Alberta and Saskatchewan are the only 2 provinces in Canada who were basically annexed. We never had a say. We never negotiated our way in. It was because there was starting to be a strong union with the US, and the East realized that they had to do something immediately. So they annexed Saskatchewan, Alberta in 1905. We didn't vote our way into it. In fact, our first premiers out here were appointees by the Liberal government in Ottawa. We didn't get to vote them in. And this is going on. There's a whole history. Shane does a great job, wherever Shane's hiding, of explaining all of that. But you look at all of our metrics and our systems right now. You look at our inflation, our housing costs, the chance of our children and grandchildren being able to afford their own home now is almost impossible. You often people talk about California and how ridiculous the tax is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Alberta within Canada, has the lowest taxation rate of any province or territory in Canada. And California has the highest out of the 50 states in the US. Do you know that Alberta's taxation rate is exponentially higher than California? I mean, it should tell you something about the direction we're going. You want to talk about the military. Do you know that right now in the Greater Toronto area, there are more real estate agents registered than what there are military individuals in all the Canadian armed forces, which is Navy, Army, and Air Force? We have about 60,000 individuals, and that's counting clerks, mechanics, cooks, infantry people. 60,000. And now there's this big, we're recruiting, we're going to move forward. Well, it was all they could do to get 7,500 people recruited. Pretty much all of them are foreigners. And they had to relax the language standards, dress standards, grooming standards to get them. And what they found is that training them is almost impossible because there's so much tribal fighting, because they come from other countries where there's tribal hatreds. And none of them will take direction from any Army member who's female because it's not in their culture. In fact, Carney just announced about a month ago that he was giving $40 million to Lebanon and $120 million to Sudan. In the exact same week, he announced a memo was sent to all Canadian military members that are deployed, particularly Latvia and countries like that, that their living away allowance is immediately happening that day, going from $2,500 a month to $1,500 a month. And just last week, thousands of military members had to turn in their kit to send overseas because they're out of supplies. But yet, people think that our grandparents would be turning over in their grave. Yeah, they would be, but for different reasons. And the fact that we're tired of being mistreated and overtaxed and underrepresented. We can look at things like MAID. The MAID program, you know, there's our healthcare system has failed so badly. People are dying. Second person just 2 weeks ago died in the waiting room in Edmonton at a hospital. If you go to hospitals right now, they're over flooded. Why? Because of immigration. We don't have the infrastructure to sustain the growth that we've been having in the last 10 years in immigration, particularly the last 6 years. 2.5 million people a year in a country that 15 years ago was 30 million. It's unsustainable. The only two categories that we now lead the world in healthcare, it's the MAID program, because we have over 100,000. It's actually, the true numbers are actually closer to 200,000 who have been suicided by MAID. More medically assisted suicides have occurred in Canada than the rest of the world combined. And we now lead the world exponentially in organ harvesting because of the MAID program. What terrifying categories to lead the world in? Our GDP, we're lower than Alabama. We used to mock places like Alabama being a bunch of rednecks, illiterate. You go down to Alabama, everybody's driving new vehicles. They have new buildings, new homes. Their children are starting businesses. Their children are buying homes. It's for all of those reasons and a million more that I begrudgingly feel that I need to stand up here and say that we've passed the fulcrum point. Canada is a failed state. There was just a governmental document released a few months ago that shows that the federal government's goal is to have 700,000 immigrants brought into Alberta in the immediate future, focusing on the rural communities. Why? Because the rural communities in Canada are the last bastion of people who are fed up with the system and want change. Everyone else has already succumbed to the numbers. If you go to any of our cities, even in Alberta, like we are the minority. And do you want to know that MAID program, who they focus on? 96% of the recipients of assisted suicide are generational Caucasian Canadians. Trudeau said a while ago that it was his goal to replace the white Europeans in Canada, and they're doing it. Everyone else that goes and has issues, they're either considered a minority or an oppressed group. So they're offered financial assistance, housing assistance, medical assistance, business assistance, schooling assistance. But if you go in, you're one of us that's sitting in this room, your option is suicide. So there are 1,000 things that we could talk about as to why I'm up here and why you're sitting here listening. We should be the wealthiest population in the world, bar none. With our natural resources, in the last 3 or 4 decades, 35 countries have formed their own independent state nations, and none of them have had the wealth that we have. None of them have the resources we have. None of them have the education, ability, and people that we have. And we have passed the fulcrum point in Canada of fixing this internally and going down a path where we can have prosperity for ourselves, let alone for our children and grandchildren. There will never be a more important event in your life than where we stand right now. If we do not take this seriously, logically, rationally, understand the actual facts, not just the emotions, we will never have this opportunity again. Nietzsche, if I can turn my phone on, had an interesting quote. Because anybody who wants to stay in Canada right now as an Albertan, it's a vote of nostalgia. And I understand it. It's a vote of what we had. But we are never, this country is never going back there again. It's impossible. Nietzsche said, Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. What we think of Canada, and if we think that we are going to have success for ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, it's an illusion. It's never coming back under the current system that we have in place. So sorry to be a bit of a Debbie Downer. I would love to take another 10 minutes and talk to all the positives that we will have when we separate. But save your questions, ask those questions. I'd love to talk about the positives of the money that will stay here, our own pension plan, our own police force, all those types of things. I'd love to talk in depth about our military bases, all the wealth, the opportunity that we have for an incredible future. But I won't take another 20 minutes of your time because there's other great people that want to speak. And I think our next speaker, I believe, is Penny. Is that correct? So I'd like to welcome Penny. Bunny on up here, Penny. So please think about your questions and ask away, and we'll try our best to answer you.
Just make sure to talk to the microphone.
Okay,
And you have to stay focused on the camera, Max.
I do. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me? It's all good. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the first speech I've done since university, which was probably many decades ago, so please bear with me. I had to write it out because my thoughts get a little jumbled if I don't. So I am thrilled to be here. I've gone to many of these events. I've been to many rallies. I was like, Pro Canada. My name is Penny Judson, and I have decided to come on this stage today because I have something to say. I am hoping that what I have to share with you will resonate on all levels, and that my words allow you to ponder and take an objective look at what is happening in Canada presently and the world around us. There is no time such as this, and the decisions we make in Alberta in the next year will not only determine our future, but also the future of our children and grandchildren. The destiny of our lovely province really depends on you. My prayer is that when people go to the polls in October, there's a strong presence of voters who value the future of Alberta and the direction that it must take as an independent nation. It is important to support the future possibility of a referendum question on Alberta separating from Canada. Please lend me your ears for the next 10 minutes, and perhaps I can give you a few reasons why. A little about me. I am firstly a Christian. I'm a mother, a grandmother, sister, daughter, a friend, an acquaintance, and a possible adversary. I was also an employee and an employer. I'm a born-again Albertan and have lived in this lovely province for 42 years. My formative years were in Ontario, but I moved out west in 1984. I retired in the fall of 2021 from a 34-year career in dental hygiene. I moved to the Caroline area in early 2022, and I'm presently residing near Rocky Mountain House. I love sports, animals, am a foodie, love to travel and experience different cultures, and love intellectually stimulating conversation. I am a third-generation Canadian and a very proud Albertan. That damn Trudeau, he's trying to get rid of the middle class. These were the frustrated words that my father said at the dinner table at my home in 1975. I was 7 years old and never forgot it. I would have to say that was my first clue that the direction of our country was possibly not a good one, in particular for the middle class. What is the middle class? According to AI's description, the middle class is a socioeconomic strata that falls between the working class and the upper class, the paupers and the elites. In Canada, the middle class is considered to have earning income between $53,000 to $141,000 after tax, although this can vary. It is a social strata tied to lifestyle, security, and aspirations. Who are the middle class? Farmers, tradespeople, healthcare providers, teachers, truck drivers, ranchers, small business owners, artists, scientists, and ironically, possibly a few politicians as well. Historically, the middle class status is about having disposable income for extras and long-term security rather than just covering basic survival. The middle class built this country and at one time was the common denominator in Canada. Our country had a prosperous middle class, but unfortunately is being squeezed out. The signs were there years ago, but in the past 10 years, we have seen a Liberal government aggressively aggressively, trying to oust the middle class so that they can institute a universal income for more control of the populace and to keep our once prosperous society into a state of abject poverty. In the 1950s, the middle class family had a modest house, one car, a larger family, and if they were lucky, one TV. Father and husband dressed in a suit and went off to work every day to provide for his family. Mother and wife stayed at home and made sure the kids went off to school, cooked farm to table, baked and cleaned, and basically kept the home fires burning. There was modest debt, if any, and most families went to church on Sundays. It was a day spent with family, honoring God, family, and home. With the evolution of feminism, materialism, and secular propaganda, we started to see the erosion of the family unit. People wanted more, risking higher mortgages, dual income homes, financing of the extras for instant gratification. Perhaps agreed to keep up with the Joneses. The traditional family began to fall apart. The mother and wife went out to work. Prepackaged foods were advertised to make life easier. There were 2 cars, usually financed, daycare, and people were too tired to go to church, and stores stayed open on Sundays for the convenience of this new and modern world. The divorce rates began to climb and continue to be a prominent part of today's cultural norm. Debt, and lots of it, became the norm and is still true today. Living on credit and making payments for decades on material items is considered a successful lifestyle. Media propaganda encouraged society to spend things, and more of them would make you successful and happy. This, my friends, set our middle-class society up for its own downfall. Having things was more important than being present. Debt and more of it equals more government control and vulnerability. It set the middle-class family up for potential bankruptcy, maximized the stress response for creating more illness, and the technological invasion of the family home created a great disconnect, encouraging an environment of exhaustion and dissolution. Then came globalization, open trade, international outsourcing, technology, shifting of domestic tax structures, and inadequate social policies. Globalization has shifted job opportunities, driving wage stagnation and heightening economic inequality. Job displacement and offshoring, where companies have relocated manufacturing and services to regions with lower operational costs, have led to massive layoffs and the hollowing out of the industrial hub. Stagnant wages have occurred by the increase in competition from an integrated global workforce, exerting downward pressure on the wages of the middle-skilled workers in developed economies, forcing many into lower-paying jobs. Rapid advancements in information and communication technology and automation act as direct substitutes for middle-skill manual labor, heavily disrupting middle-class employment security. Income inequality has occurred with the economic gains of globalization, disproportionately benefiting multinational organizations, high-tech professionals, and elite business owners, leading to a wide gap between the top 1% and the rest of society. Now, trade deals, brick by brick, have caused competition with companies that charge 1/10 of the costs of what would be in Canada. Free trade, in particular, with places like Mexico and China, have cost the middle class their job security and lifestyle. Trade deals have and always will be for the benefit of the elite and corporations. Wherever supply chains are outsourced, it creates polarization of class structure, hence contributing to the downfall of the middle class, an increase in elitist wealth, and a continued decline in the poverty-stricken. With the increase of mass immigration, where there are a high number of foreign workers, cheap labor has an impact on native wages. Interestingly enough, in the US, the Black unskilled worker has suffered most from immigration. The temporary foreign worker program in Canada is costing 10 times the cost to maintain than what it's bringing in. The government is using this to change the character of our country and to continue chipping away at the middle class. It was recently brought to my attention that out of 196 countries in Canada, there are 6 in a technical recession. Canada is one of the 6, along with Haiti, Myanmar, Yemen, Venezuela, and Equatorial Guinea. Of these 6 countries, 5 of them are underdeveloped or third world countries, and Canada is not far behind. People, we need to see and acknowledge this. So big thank you to a little bit of help from AI and Jeff Rubin, who's an economist for Canada. Got some of my information from there. Since Haiti is one of the 6 countries in a technical recession, and has been for a long time, I'm going to share with you a firsthand experience about this country. The reason I'm sharing this experience is to educate you on what happens to country over time with massive political instability. And Canada's political arena and economy is very unstable. Once again, the target of middle-class vulnerability. I used to do dental missions with a nonprofit group called Kindness in Action. I went to Central and South America in countries of need, mostly having underdeveloped or third world economies. In January 2016, I decided to go to Haiti. I think it was about 6 years after their earthquake. In 2016, there was a turbulent period of political gridlock in Haiti. It has been described as returning to authoritarian rule in the past 10 years, and specifically from 2020 onward, when subsequent presidents dissolved parliament and ruled by decree within elections for prolonged periods. Does that sound familiar? Haiti is a country of desperation. The people there will do anything to get their hands on supplies, water, and any extras they possibly can. There's continued violence there, and it has spread across the country. Port-au-Prince is the capital city, and it has an area called Soul City. It is the largest ghetto in the Western Hemisphere, with high crime, unsanitary living conditions, and where most of the poverty-stricken people live. And of course, this is where Kindness in Action crew set up. Being Caucasian foreigners, we stood out like a sore thumb. We had security guards wherever we went. We were driven to our work sites in the back of a tap-tap truck with a 20-year-old Haitian man with a machine gun as our guard. We stayed in a gated Canadian-run pension with security guards on site with machine guns. At the time, there was extreme volatility due to the elections being called and cancelled, and at night, you could see the haze over the pension walls, the gate walls of smoke from the fires that were being set on the streets by dissident gangs. It was very exciting, to say the least. The streets were full of garbage with very fat sows, or pigs, that would forage and sleep in the garbage. Open sewers lined the streets with excrement, and there was a constant fetid smell as the hot temperatures had exacerbated the existing waste. At our work site, the Haitian people would line up every day, and we would triage the most important procedures for them, and then they had to wait in turn for treatment. Again, there were security guards handling the crowds. It was not uncommon to hear people yelling and fighting outside. They were trying to shove their way into the clinic to get priority treatment. There were several gangs in Soul City, and the gang leaders and their girlfriends would go to the heads of the line to get treatment first. More fights. Unbeknownst to us, the gang leaders were carrying guns, and they had to check the guns with security at the doors when coming in. There was no place to lock up the guns, so we were kept in an unsecured area. It was crazy. In Soul City, the gang leaders were young, very young. You knew who they were because they looked like rappers with gold chains and jewelry and their pants to the ground attire. Their girlfriends were just as flashy. You could hear the odd gunshot on the street, and it was not uncommon as the gangs would fight if they were in the same vicinity. The mannerisms of all the people were quite aggressive, and they literally would push you while they were talking to you. They would take 2 fingers and jab you above the chest and speak at you in a raised voice. It got pretty old fast. The children had ringworm, and none of them wore shoes. And of course, they would try to crawl all over you to steal whatever that you had in your pockets. Most of the vehicles were barely running, and all 4 tires were different sizes. You would see people taking batteries out of the cars on the street to put in their own just so they could drive them. There was no potable water unless you bought it. It came in tiny bags for drinking. Any other water for bathing and cooking was brought to the area by truck. None of the shanties had any plumbing or central water supply. There was no set day or time when the trucks would come, so sometimes the Haitians went without. But when the truck would come, it was chaos as people were desperate to get whatever water they could. We helped them one day, and that was quite an adventure. When we finished the mission, we were physically searched several times at the airport. When we got home, all of us got quite sick for a few weeks from stress, unsanitary conditions, and parasites. The reason I have discussed the middle class in Canada today and shared my experience in Haiti is open your eyes. Many people are in denial with what is happening in Canada. Our country is in the same recession pool as Haiti. I'm going to repeat that. Our country is in the same recession pool as Haiti. We are rapidly declining as the middle class is squeezed out and the class system becomes more polarized. You are thinking we could never get as bad as Haiti? Think again. Desperation breeds desperate behavior. Crime has escalated in Canada with a so-called justice system that favors the criminals over the victims. Food and gas are at the most exorbitant prices at an all-time high. There's less and less job security with foreign entities taking over our factories and penetrating the mineral sector. An overly dominant, dictatorial federal Liberal government in power takes great joy in failures and closures of small businesses that once made our country strong and viable. And sadly, that is not going to change. I loved Canada and used to be a proud Canadian. Now I feel an intense grief over what our country has become and represents. It is no longer a country that represents faith, family, and freedom. It is a sunken ship, and as a nation, we are finished. I passionately feel that Alberta needs to become its own republic. In Alberta, we still have a chance to live a traditional way of life with morals, values, and beliefs that are for the people. We can vote for an independent path forward if we so choose. It's not going to be easy, but nothing worth any value ever is. Albertans are strong, resilient, hardworking, believe in choice. That is what true democracy is. Please take time to ponder what has been presented today by all the speakers. Envision a future in Alberta with hope, strong faith, family, and friends. Be a part of the solution instead of the dissolution. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
Our next speaker is Scott. Isn't that shocking to hear that what is actually happening in Haiti over there?
Well, thank you to all the other speakers, and thank you folks for coming to spend some time with us today. The reason that we're doing these town hall meetings is because, there's a lot of people that have a lot of things to say. We have some very important decisions coming up in the next few months, and some of those decisions are going to have lasting consequence. For instance, the referendum question to have a referendum, we might end up having another referendum. That's a joke. But it is a step forward on a path to something different for Alberta. And the something different could be independence. And it might not be. We don't know. But because it's such an important topic, I believe, and the other speakers believe, and the volunteers at Let's Talk Alberta believe, we know that it's important to have the conversations. We kind of live in we do live in a world where more often than not, those who don't share the same opinions as us, or even on our side for that matter, are more likely to try and shut down the conversation, to cancel the conversation, rather than having an open debate, rather than engaging in dialogue in private or in public. That's what we want to change here. So we do try our best to invite people that do not share my opinion, and my opinion is Alberta independence is necessary and it's inevitable. I would love if you folks had some challenges to that, some countering opinions that you wanted to talk with me and the other panelists about. And my hope is that when we leave these meetings, we've all learned something new, whether it be something about Canadian history or Alberta history, or maybe we've dealt with some misconceptions about Alberta independence. Maybe we've got some facts out in front of each other that we can talk about. And then when we leave here, we can start having these conversations with the rest of the people in our lives. Because at the end of the day, no matter which side of this conversation you're on, we're not going to change the outcome or even get to the best outcome if we only talk to the people who agree with us, right? My message to the Forever Canadian crowd would be, if you really believe that Alberta should always remain part of Canada, I challenge you and invite you to come to one of these events and try and change my mind. Like, share your vision for Alberta. Tell me why you believe the status quo is the best path. Who knows? Maybe you've got some really good points and you'll change my mind. But if you really believe in something, I don't think it's enough just to stand on at a podium and say what you believe. I think you have to be willing to have the conversations with other people, especially something this critical. If you believe that Alberta is better off in Canada, you should be here advocating for that outcome. Because I don't believe for a second that only 30% of Albertans would support the idea of an independent Alberta. I believe the number is much higher. I believe there's a lot of what I call closet separatists, people who don't share these opinions in public for fear of reprisal. How many people in this room today know somebody who has suffered some consequence for sharing publicly their position on Alberta independence? That's like the vast majority of us know people. How many people in this room know somebody who has suffered a consequence for sharing their opinion that the status quo is the best path, that Alberta should remain in Canada? Okay, so there's a couple people. But my point that I'm making there is the conversation that we're having, as important as it is, it's kind of stuck with this. It's kind of stuck under the misconception that it's an impolite conversation, that it's a taboo subject, that it's something we shouldn't talk about. And I really disagree. I really strongly disagree. The consequence of the Alberta, or of the October referendum, I think the question is going to be something like, A, do you agree that Alberta should remain Canada or remain part of Canada? Or B, do you agree that the Alberta government should begin the legal process necessary to open the conversation on Alberta independence at some time in the future? If you agree right now and select B on the referendum question, then we can talk about it later and deal with it in the future. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was something like that. If Alberta decides at that point to select option A, to stay with the status quo, that has some very serious implications. If Alberta continues on the course it's on right now, we continue to be underrepresented in the Senate, almost ineffective in the Senate. I'll actually say ineffective with the Senate. We continue to hold federal elections in which our ballot boxes aren't even opened before the election's called. We continue to be unable to effect change in federal legislation that will impact our lives. For example, legislation that may have you fined or jailed from sharing your opinion or telling the truth. We remain on a collision course with the federal government interfering in our property by designating specific firearms as too dangerous for us to handle. There's a lot of consequence to that, and I don't think that people talk about that enough. Yes, there's a consequence to an independent Alberta and a benefit, and that we get to, for the first time ever in Canadian history, decide the laws that govern us. But the consequence of not doing anything or continuing with the status quo, they're very real too. And I think for people that are advocating for that outcome, advocating for the A choice, presumably the A choice on the ballot, they have to understand that there are consequences we need to talk about as well. And it would be better, in my opinion, if the people that support that idea would come here and tell me why they think that we should continue to go down that path. Most of the things on that path, if not all of them, I don't agree with. I don't agree that Canadians or Albertans or anyone should be put in these little boxes where the government says what you can and cannot do, and if you stray to at all from what they say, you're going to go to jail. I don't believe that. I don't believe that in Canada, of all places, any person should go to jail for peacefully protesting government policy on their own property. I mean, that's appalling to me. I also don't believe that bureaucracy should be allowed to run unchecked and result in, the slaughter of a few hundred birds who may or may not have been sick and refuse to be tested. Like, these things, I don't agree with them. And I've yet to hear anybody offer me an explanation why I should support these things. So we're going to go into this question, we're going to go into this referendum with both sides really not talking very much to the other because they're too scared of what the other will think. right? We watched, I watched a little video of a parade. I think it was, I want to say Innisfail, where this cool motorhome with maple leafs on it was honking and chasing down people with Alberta flags. I watched a Facebook video where there was a banner, a big banner stretched across the road, and it said separatists. And this bus came barreling through it, implying to me that anybody who believes in Alberta independence should be mowed down by a motorhome. These things aren't okay with me. And, you know, if you have a position on this matter and you're unwilling to do something like this, like my challenge is, I would like nothing better than to stand up on the stage or sit on a chair on the stage with a whole bunch of people that disagree with me and have them rapid fire questions and challenges at me while I sweat it out up here answering. That's what I want. I'm not sure exactly how to get it, but that's what I want. But if we continue with where we're at, with this idea that this divide, you know, makes one side human and one side less than human, and it's okay to, you know, depict mowing them down with buses, how's that conducive to a good outcome? Because isn't that what we're after? I don't want an independent Alberta just for shits and giggles. I want it because I believe that is the best outcome for Albertans and for Canadians, by the way, and actually for hundreds of thousands and millions of people across the planet. It's not like a passing fancy. It's not because I have nothing better to do. I mean, it's Sunday. I'm not supposed to be here today. We all have better things to do than put our bums in seats at town halls and talk about these things. I want the best outcome for my kids, who I'm obviously not spending time with today, which I could be. Instead, I'm here advocating for my position about Alberta. So I guess that would be my, I'll leave that as an encouragement today. How about this? Because we're facing such a serious question with such lasting consequence or benefit, here's an opportunity for Albertans as human beings to break free of the shackles of cancel culture and start having conversations, knowing that we have an opportunity to do something that people have sacrificed their lives for. Maybe we could agree that it's in our best interest to have these conversations, knowing that the result of the conversations over the next few months are going to change Alberta in a way maybe that it never has been before. And we should be grateful for that. And then we can start looking at each other again as human beings instead of, you know, the dirty seppi or the elbows up. What are they called? I said almost outed myself there. What do we call them?
Elbows up.
Elbows up, yes. We're all human beings. I think we all want the same, mostly the same outcome, which is the best thing for us and our families. We just have differing opinions on how to get there. And that means we have to have conversations. So let's talk Alberta. You see how I did that? I fit in the name of the group into the speech. Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, thanks, Max. I knew you'd catch that. We're going to take a 10-minute break here. You guys can, and gals can mingle and visit for a little bit. Check out some of the tables at the back there. There's some awesome Alberta merch. I think there's one Canadian flag back there somewhere. And then we're going to reconvene here in, I say 10 minutes, but it's always like 12 minutes. We're going to reconvene in a few minutes, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have. I would be happy to hear any concerns you have about my opinions. And yeah, see you in 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right, we're just going to intermission mode, put the chairs back in place, and we'll see you in a bit. If you're comfortable, just send some super chats, really helpful, really helps things going forward a little bit. Pays the bills, pay the invoices, pays the Starlink and all that sort of stuff. And
well, folks, I forgot my laptop today, so I'm doing this all off my phone. I don't think I'm going to keep it on for the Q&A. You guys can tune into freedomcalendar.net. He's got the stream going if you want to watch the Q&A. They'll be back in 10 minutes. Happy Sunday. And see you later. What's the button again? Patty, what's the button I gotta press? Do you know what I'm doing? Somebody's got to know what they're doing here. Just a second. I'm gonna put the camera back this way. I'm gonna go into. No, not N. We got to put on Stumpy. Otherwise, people will get mad at me. So we got to go find the Stumpy. There she.